Welcome into this latest edition of the Charleston County Connects podcast, and we have a special edition for you today, something that affects every citizen across the United States, mosquitoes. And we are joined by Ed Harne, Taxonomist with Charleston County Mosquito Control. Ed, you've been in the mosquito industry for how long now?
38 years plus, Sean.
38 years. So in that time, how have the mosquitoes changed your life?
Sean, in incredible ways, because I did not realize the scope of the whole profession, what we do, what other people across the country do. And, you know, you hear about mosquito-borne diseases. I grew up north, probably like you. You just don't know what goes on in this realm across most of the United States, and even northern states that we don't even think about, Montana, the Dakotas, Alaska. So we don't think about that, but like the southeastern states, those folks have a mosquito problem too, and the way we deal with those is pretty similar as far as surveillance, treatment, and some of the activities we do. So across the North American continent, big scenario, but I grew up like you did in the Northeast. You don't really think of it. Mm-hmm. There are mosquitoes up there, but they're not in the volume, the intensity, and the duration that they are here in the Southeast.
Intensity is a good word, and as we get into summer months, every year in June, you have a Mosquito Control Awareness Week, but right. You guys have already been rocking and rolling. Whenever heavy rains come, that always produces, what do you guys, hatch off?
Right, we'll get mosquito eggs will be hatching that are already in places where they will then hatch into aquatic stage. We call them larvae or baby mosquitoes. So they're already there waiting. So it's just a matter of how much rain does it cover those eggs. And not only that, we have high tides here because we're a coastal city. Mm-hmm. We have high tide events that will produce mosquito breeding as well. And we also have container breeders. So any of these three scenarios can play out, including we're in the low country, Sean. I mean, we're in a place where there are freshwater swamps, there are ditches, there are salt marshes. We have dredge disposal sites produced by the dredging of the rivers and the intercoastal waterways. So we have multiple scenarios to produce multiple generations of multiple mosquitoes all across the board in our county and the two adjacent counties, Berkeley and Dorchester as well.
And you mentioned multiple. There are 50 plus species of mosquitoes just in the low country?
Actually, we've got a couple invasives now, so there's probably closer to 60 within Charleston County. If we go deep into Berkeley County, if we go maybe south or north, mm-hmm. and maybe a little bit west, you're going to find up to close to 70 species. So within that tri-county area, you're going to find between 60 and 70 species depending on where you're at. Now, not all of those bite human beings, but most of them do.
Okay. During this awareness week, it wouldn't be uncommon for citizens to see you guys actually walking around neighborhoods. Because one thing I've understood over time is if you get bit by a mosquito in your backyard, it's most likely been produced in or near your backyard.
That's right, Sean. And it can be produced there, although in Charleston County and somewhat closer to Berkeley County, the portion that's close to Charleston County, you can be bitten by a mosquito that's flown 25 miles. Those would be the salt marsh species. Some of the what we call freshwater species can fly 5 to 10. So, but like you said, yeah, you want to check first. The first thing you want to look at in somebody's property is what could be happening on that property. Are you breeding your own mosquitoes with, say, a bird bath, a dog dish? You left the kids' toys out and it's rained and you haven't cleaned it up for a couple weeks. A lot of boats in Charleston County because we're a coastal county, great access to water. Folks will leave their boat out and it'll collect leaves over the winter, and then it rains, and then you have a whole new breeding scenario. So all these things play into the population and have been going on, as you said, since probably about March, April, something like that. So we've been rolling since about that time.
The containers in your backyard, what's the timeline for mosquito larvae to turn into something that's going to bite you?
That's a good question. So it's roughly the same as any other species, but when it's warm and humid like right now, temperatures in the 80s, highs in the 80s, those mosquitoes can go egg to adult in about 6 days.
Wow.
That's a pretty fast window, and that's why mosquitoes can be such a problem, because you could have multiple generations being produced over and over again with every rain event. Now, we just had several storm events here in Charleston County, punctuated by some days of dryness and no rain. So every time it rains, then there's a new level potentially dropped into those containers, which covers more eggs, which just perpetuates the cycle.
What do you need citizens to do? Because the phone, the internet, the text messaging service, that stuff's going to go off the hook as soon as mosquito season starts rolling around. But there is some work that people can do to help themselves a little.
Absolutely, Sean. What these folks can do is take a look in your yard, and this is probably going to be a March through October project. At least once a week, take a look in your yard. If you have something that holds water, even if it's intentional, like a bird bath, what you want to do is flush it out once a week. That's all it has to be. But if you miss a week, then that's enough time for the mosquitoes to take hold and start breeding. So about once a week, flush those items out, turn them over. You can just turn them over if you don't want to flush them out with a hose. But flushing them out with a hose is the quickest way to do this, or turn them over so they don't collect water, or get rid of them, clean them up, and so forth. If you have any questions, you could also call us, and we could give you some pointers in person, or you can go online and look up our portion of the Charleston County website to get some tips on that.
Certainly plenty of phone calls this time of year.
Absolutely.
In your career, any wild ones that you can recall off the top of your head?
Well, sometimes I don't remember anything that was really crazy, but one thing people will call us a lot about is midges, because they're about the same size and shape, look a whole lot like mosquitoes, and because now we have retention ponds all over the county and the adjacent counties, some for stormwater rules, some are just existing. Midges are produced by the thousands on occasion, sort of like a boom and bust cycle. So people can get millions of midges on their front porch because they leave their lights on at night just from midges, and they'll call us, hey, the mosquitoes are all over my front and I can't even go outside, and it's really midges. But in that case, if you call us or notify us with a service request, we can come out and get those ID'd and let them know, yes, they are mosquitoes, no, they're not. So midges happen this time of year. It's a very busy time of the year for all species of insects, and a lot of things can be mistaken for mosquitoes. So those are kind of some of the crazy things that we see. People call us about midges, and they say the midges are covering myself and my kids and our pets, and they'll do that, but they're probably not mosquitoes, but we'd like to take a look at them.
That brings up an interesting point. The purpose for mosquito control, obviously, is to control the mosquito population, but it's not just because mosquitoes can be a nuisance to people. It's a public health hazard.
Absolutely, Sean. And we don't have endemic mosquito-borne disease here at the moment, but it could appear anytime. As we experienced during the Zika outbreak of the 2016s, 2017s, people were traveling regardless of travel restrictions. So they were still going to the Caribbean, going other places, and bringing it back here. So it could come into this county and adjacent counties at any point in time. So a well-trained mosquito professional group is what you want to have in place, and that's us in our county to deal with that if and when we have a mosquito-borne disease scenario. Also, my lab partner, Andrew, and I are going out on a scheduled basis to run mosquito traps to catch mosquitoes for mosquito-borne disease surveillance. So we catch those mosquitoes, we do a little bit of sorting, and then we send them to Columbia to be analyzed for mosquito-borne diseases. So we're actively looking. We're also on a network with DHEC to notify us if a human being gets a mosquito-borne disease, if a horse has a mosquito-borne disease, if someone turns in a bird that has West Nile virus. All these scenarios get to DHEC, and then they get to us via their notification system to let us know, you have this scenario down here in Charleston County. Then we can put our protocol in place to go ahead and deal with those mosquitoes to make sure that nothing or nobody else gets bitten, and then the disease transmission cycle is hopefully broken at that point.
So let me make sure I captured this right. So if you do get an alert, say a horse is tested positive for West Nile, something along that,
right,
there is a possibility a mosquito can bite said horse and infect a human being?
No, it doesn't exactly work like that. Fortunately, what would happen is the horse would get bitten, and the mosquito would then transmit it possibly to a bird. But right now we don't think there's any human-to-human or animal-to-human transmission. Okay. So almost all that science has determined already has found that the only way a human can get West Nile, Eastern equine encephalitis is if the mosquito has bitten the bird, which is the main carrier. And in the bird, obviously their blood supply is so concentrated and very small. So the mosquito, any bit of blood that the mosquito gets that's infected, the mosquito is going to pick it up. So then when it bites a human, bites an animal, most likely another bird, could be anything that's out in the wild, a horse, whatever, then that little bit of West Nile then gets amplified in the larger organism, and that's the way that works. But yeah, we do get calls and notifications about that. Not a whole lot, but sometimes people just don't vaccinate their horses. There's nothing that we can do except after the fact, go try to fix it. And I will mention too, since you asked, so heartworm is the most common disease that we will probably see in our lifetime. Hopefully none of us will see tropical mosquito-borne diseases here in Charleston County. But if you have a dog, please get your dog on the heartworm medication. Use repellents when you're outside so your dog does not contract heartworm, which is fairly common. We have several species that can spread it here in South Carolina.
So mosquitoes can spread heartworm from your dog?
Yes, they can infect your dog, and then they can pick heartworm up from that same animal.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I think most people tend to think mosquito and mosquito-borne illnesses tend to just impact humans, but you see it in wildlife as well.
Absolutely, and it would work on the other canines as well. Foxes could get it, wolves could get it. Anything in the canine family could get a heartworm, and really severely. So we want to, at least to protect your pets, make sure they get their heartworm medication.
Okay. Another thing you guys commonly get calls about every year are no-see-ums, gnats, whatever you want to call them. They're a nuisance, but they're not a public health threat.
That's correct. They do not, as far as we know, carrying diseases. I think if they did, we'd all be dying left and right because we're all going outside. All the activities that we do, when you're exposed to those things, and they do not, again, carry diseases, but we recommend you use repellents, do whatever you can to keep them off of you. And there are some what I call thermal repellent devices that you can get, which work very well against them as well. Keep one around you. There are several different kinds now. As I did some research lately, there was one kind that is pretty popular. We like that one, but there are now a couple, 2 or 3 of them on the market that are repellent devices, keep about a 15 to 20 foot barrier if you keep it next to you, and that plus repellents would really do you well to use those.
We had an interesting conversation before we started recording about exactly what a repellent does. It's not necessarily that imaginary barrier that keeps mosquitoes away, but it just performs a layer on your skin.
Exactly. It's just basically camouflage. And so it could be anything. Right now, the plant oils, the essential oils are popular, and that's great. As long as it doesn't hurt your skin, cause you to have a reaction, anything like that is effective. Now, traditionally, DEET, because it's been used for so many years and researched for so many years, is very effective. And you get DEET in different percentages, too. Some people, when they use DEET at a very high concentration, makes them react, gets their skin itchy or whatever, but there are different concentrations of DEET. There are now other DEET formulations that you can spray on now. And so the range of repellents now is greater than ever was, and the materials that are in repellents now are better than they ever were. So I would encourage people to use repellents, read the directions, and that will go a long way to keeping you somewhat mosquito-free.
Okay. I think you briefly touched on the fact that you do go to houses, make house calls when called upon. How do people get a hold of you guys? What sort of requests are you looking for? Or more importantly, what sort of requests are you not looking for?
Well, we're not looking for anything that's crazy, obviously, but if people have a concern about an insect, as long as they think it looks like a mosquito, we don't expect them to be entomologists. We know that they don't have the training, and we do. So we have 6 field inspectors that are out in the field just about every day in Charleston County, taking a look at what's going on with the aquatic stage mosquito population, the adult mosquito population. We would like to send one of them if you have a mosquito problem. Even if you're not exactly 100% sure, you don't have a mosquito, you don't know if it is or isn't, then please call us. You can call us at our number 843-202-7880. You can text us via the CityBot function. You can go online to the county website, find the mosquito control section. Sometimes it's a little difficult, but you can find it, and you can go to our website and learn everything that you'd like to know, plus place a service request there.
Okay, and we'll put all the contact information for mosquito control in the episode description. Going back to the main point, though, is citizens really have to do the work in their own backyards, their own front yards, do what they can to prevent mosquitoes from populating.
That's right, Sean, and we can't emphasize this enough. Even if you rent a house, even if you're a renter, please check your yard once a week. Make sure your kids didn't leave a toy out. We see that a lot. If you have a bird bath, yeah, that's great. I have a bird bath in my backyard, but I make sure to flush it out a couple times a week, and that's all it takes, really. If you have a boat in Charleston County, and a lot of people do, even if you have a cover on it, sometimes the covers tend to sag and they get full of water. So anything like that, 5-gallon bucket, we see buckets. Buckets are pretty common. The other major offender, and I forgot to mention this earlier, is people with plants. Now, we love plants, we love people with plants, but if you got that little saucer on the bottom there, that is one of the major offenders and breeders of container breeding mosquitoes in this county. And some people, you go in their yard and they have 30, 40 of those things, and that's fine. But you got to make sure if the water stays there for more than a few days, even though it looks like the opening's really tiny, you got to get that water out once a week. And that, again, that's a major offender. People just don't realize, and we have to tell them, hey, mosquitoes get in there, and it doesn't look like a big opening, but it can really breed a lot of mosquitoes. You can breed enough in one planter to infest your entire block. If you think that's crazy, it sounds like it is, but that has happened before. We had people with 1 or 2 planters all along their block. They were getting container breeding mosquitoes, and nobody else had anything in their yard. So this can happen, and you can breed a lot of mosquitoes that way.
And mosquitoes can breed in what, a cap full of water?
Just a cap full, like my little water bottle here, a cap full right there, can breed those container breeding mosquitoes. So please police your own yards. Take a look at them once a week, especially when it's warm like right now, all the way through the month of October. Now, you can take a break, start in November, go through February. It's not so important that you do it then, but once it starts to get warm here, the days get longer, we get into May and June, please check your yard, and that's the big thing.
Okay. Do you know what a mosquito's worst fear is?
I don't know, Sean, what it is.
The SWAT team.
The SWAT team, very good.
That's pretty good.
I'll
That's not
remember
original.
that.
Yeah,
okay.
You can use that.
There's
one.
a dad joke for you right there.
Absolutely. Well, Ed, great seeing you. Thank you very much for your time, and we will see and hear you guys again on the next edition of the Charleston County Connects podcast. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe on all the various platforms.